What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one I'm going to be talking about the one and only Tesla stock and what you should be looking out for the future. I'm also going to break down what's going on with the overall market, how this may affect Tesla, what's going on with the debt ceiling, what the politicians are saying this time, how this may affect the whole market going forward. I'm going to break down some news and technicals affecting Tesla, and also from many other tickers out there, from SPY to QQQ to NASDAQ, and break down why this is going to be very important for the future of the markets moving forward. Before breaking things down about all of these technicals and what the news is telling us about Tesla and the market, I do have to mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner. Make sure you take none of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire Tesla community as a whole. And the last thing is, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you're guaranteed up to 12 free stocks, each worth up to $3,000. And the best part is, any could be a free Tesla share. The offer ends very, very soon in just about 9 days, so check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. So Tesla's up 4.85% for the day, pushing up very, very hard. In my previous video, I talked about how there were tons of shorts piling into Tesla. The last time that happened, we saw Tesla slow down, and we were getting some signs that Tesla was at the upper Bollinger Band, which tends to slow it down. Now, I told you guys we'd either see a big short squeeze on Tesla or we could see Tesla come down. And that would depend heavily on how the market responds to the news. I was leaning more bearish because of what I saw happening involving Mitch McConnell and many other politicians, from Janet Yellen. She's actually the Treasury Secretary. You could call her a politician anyways, but many of the other politicians, and we were getting lots of very bad news. Even today in the morning, lots of bad news came out. And this was very concerning, but despite that, the market did not care. The market is very fixated on this deal getting done. It believes it's going to get done, and it does not care too much about the bad news. It's still holding up nicely, and it believes we're going to get a deal very, very soon. But I want to break down more details about that in just a couple of minutes and talk about how this could affect Tesla going forward. For now, Tesla looks very strong on the daily candle, which I will break down a little bit later. And there's a lot of potential for Tesla to try to continue, especially if the news comes out about a deal very, very soon. But first, let's talk about the market. To start us off, looking at the data coming out for tomorrow, we have the Fed Logan speaking tomorrow. It tends to be in the middle. And then after that, we have the PMI reports coming out for the first 15 minutes. So this is going to be important for the new home sales data and also the PMI global services data. Why is this so important? Well, when the manufacturing data comes out, we're going to expect lots of volatility in the markets. For the first 30 minutes, specifically the first 15 minutes and the first 30 minutes, expect lots of volatility. Okay, lots of volatility. The market's going to pump in the morning, then come right back down, then bounce again, depending on this data. So be ready for that. Lots of volatility in the daytime, and then later on we have some building permit data by the time the market closes. But besides that, there's nothing else that's too huge. For Wednesday, we have crude oil data and many other things like that, not as big as tomorrow. Then we have some Fed speakers later on, and then the FOMC minutes, that's going to be very important as well. So we have some big days ahead of us. The FOMC minutes will affect how the market moves for Wednesday. But until then, for Tuesday, the biggest thing is going to be the PMI report in terms of data. Now, for earnings that are coming out, for tomorrow, we have Lowe's, Dick's Sporting Goods, a bunch of other ones like AutoZone and many others. And then for Wednesday, we have a massive, massive day for Nvda. We have earnings after the market closes. This is going to produce an absolutely massive move. Then we have Xpong and Kohl's and many other out there. For Thursday, we have Best Buy and Costco. And finally, for Friday, we have Big Lots. So lots of retail for the week, not too significant compared to previous tech stock earnings, but the biggest one is going to be Nvidia. I'm going to be very, very open-minded when looking at it. But now let's break down the debt ceiling. What the heck is going on with the debt ceiling? It's just getting worse and worse as the days go on. Janet Yellen keeps on screaming that there's very limited time. She's saying that June 1st is going to be the hard deadline. They have to meet it or else things are going to get very ugly. She said this yesterday, and this was once again a little bit concerning. Then we had lots of politicians continuing to just jab at each other, fighting it out every single day. And this was very, very crazy. It was very, polarizing. And to be honest with you guys, I'm personally in the middle. I don't really want to pick any sides. I know I'm going to say things that could be in favor or against particular people. I'm not going to say them based off my opinions. I'm simply going to state what these politicians are saying. And it's very important for us to look at this and understand their perspectives, because this will affect the entire stock market. Why? Because the market's being dictated by the debt ceiling news. The market's anticipating we're going to see it getting raised. And who's going to raise it? Who's going to dictate that? Politicians. That's why, I don't really like this phase the market's in. I don't really like how these politicians are going to dictate how the market moves. And it can also be very capricious, very hard to predict sometimes, especially for yesterday. So why was I still favoring the bears for today in my video from yesterday? And the reason for that is because lots of bad news was coming out from the politicians. First off, the news was saying that Republicans just walked out on the Democrats. The same thing you could argue happened vice versa. I'm not trying to pick sides when I say that. And people were just continuing to argue. It was a total mess. I don't even know where to go from this. Everyone was just attacking each other. It just continued that way. McCarthy came out and said that President Joe Biden is not being serious enough. He also said that Biden could be the first president in history to default on the debt. He actually said that, and that's pretty serious. Okay. Then McCarthy came out and said, once again, Biden was not, doing a great job. He wasn't being reasonable. He was saying the White House was not being reasonable. No progress has been made. The president has to get serious. Other people were saying that there is no progress made whatsoever, and they're just continuing to jab at one another. It's a complete mess. It's just crazy. I really don't like this. I don't really like to study this in this much detail and just listen to these people who are constantly just, playing the game of politics. And then we had people on the left saying the same things, saying that Republicans are just getting in the way. It's just completely giving me a headache at this point. It's really annoying. Janet Yellen came out today and she said, I'm willing to note that we estimate that it is highly likely that the Treasury will no longer be able to satisfy all the government's obligations if Congress has not acted to raise or suspend the debt limit by early June and potentially as early as June 1st. So she's reaffirming the hard deadline of June 1st. And what does this all tell me about the stock market? Well, looking at the data, if we get a deal before June 1st, anytime between now and I would say the end of May, this could be bullish for the market still. The market's going to pump on the news. Okay? It still will pump on the news, in my opinion. And I believe the market believes this is going to happen. It's very likely this will happen. So there could still be a big move to come to the upside. But here's the thing, okay? There's the saying, buy the rumors, sell the news. And also the possibility that they continue to just fight, these politicians just fight and fight and fight, and we don't even get the deal by June 1st. Now, if that happens, that's going to become bearish for the stock market after June 1st, because they're just going to continue to play the dirty game of politics. Who knows where they're going to go this time, continuing to jab at each other, say, the most unpredictable things about one another. And if this happens, okay, if we do end up seeing them arguing and, they end up delaying it, in my opinion, the US government may have enough money to make it to July, maybe into mid July, right? But Janet Yellen has been coming out and saying June 1st is the hard deadline just to get them to capitulate on the different sides and agree and negotiate. That's what her intention is. But if they end up delaying the deadline and they just continue to act like children and argue and argue and argue and they don't come to a consensus, that's going to turn bearish for the markets if this lasts until after June 1st. Historically, we tend to not default and they tend to eventually come to an agreement at the last minute. So the odds are favoring this possibility. Let me just underline it so you can see this is more likely right here that they get a deal done. McCarthy said a deal could be done within 2 days. He changed his words again, but you have to remember that both Biden and McCarthy and Mitch McConnell and Schumer, all of these people came out and said a deal should be done by Sunday. And Sunday came and they did not finish the deal. They just continued to argue. It's just a mess. Now they're saying, give us 2 days, a deal should be done. I think there's some are saying by tomorrow the deal is going to be done. I don't know, guys. It's just an absolute mess. And I also want to add that the entire stock market is being impacted by these people who are just arguing like children on a daily basis. Okay, it's just continuing this way, and I don't really consider this good news. But now let's talk about some other news involving Tesla before I break down the charts. uh, China has announced that they're going to maintain lower interest rates, or at least the new rates that they've had. The lending rates are just going to stay and hold at those levels, and that's bullish for the market. That helped the market pump a little bit more. This was good news for Tesla and many other companies because it allows less and less fees, less and less expenditures for businesses to lend out more money to one another or even borrow money from banks. This gives them more liquidity, which could help them make more investments into themselves and invest more going forward. As these Chinese companies have more growth, as they have more spending capabilities, this could also help many partners who are involved with American companies, right? So like companies like Tesla could benefit from this, and this was part of why Tesla ended up liking this news. This did help it squeeze to some degree. This is also why we saw stocks like Neo and Alibaba push to the upside for today. Now, on top of this, let me just close this ad. There was news about Tesla's first ad that came out after a very long time. It's going to be including basically a person in Singapore that's going to be praising their Tesla Model 3. Once again, good news for the company, but there have been some criticisms, about it because the news is saying that Tesla is not even mentioning FSD. They don't even have to mention it. It's still a very, very important beta for the company, so they're still working on it, right? So I don't really consider that bad news. I know the news is painting it that way. Don't really fall for them. I also noticed that Reuters and many other companies, news outlets, are saying that Tesla's going to be a sell into Tesla, get out of Tesla. It's about to start tanking. There's a lot of negative news all of a sudden. I wonder, why is this happening? Could it be because Wall Street and all of these shorts are starting to pile into Tesla, trying to get Tesla to crash? Instead, they're getting absolutely destroyed. It looks like that's what's going on. And they're very salty right now at the same time. Inventory levels for the Model Y are still very flat, but they have been dropping just a tiny bit. They're still relatively low compared to like these levels. That's a decent sign, but I want to see them get lower into like the 100s or lower from now. Now for the Model 3, this is still not the best news for Tesla. The Model 3 inventory levels are still starting to go up a bit. The reason I talk about the Model Y and the Model 3 is because the large majority of Tesla's sales are those two models. They're the two most popular ones, and they make up the large majority of their sales by like 80% or more. Now, for now, we're getting very mixed results. The Model Y inventory levels are still a little bit high than how they used to be. They're still relatively low compared to the Model 3, but they're going up just a tiny bit. The Model 3 has been dropping in terms of inventories, but they're still too high. And this is very, very mixed for Tesla's next earnings report. This could change. We have many, many months until they have deliveries data coming out for the entire quarter of the Q2, and also more time. So we just have to be patient on this. As far as Tesla's summary goes in terms of the data, you will notice that Tesla outperformed the market. Very, very nice price comparison compared to SPY and QQQ. Price price ratio jumped as Tesla's showing more strength. And Tesla's once again outperforming the market. Now, Tesla's next major support is going to be around this 186 zone, 185 to 186. That's where Tesla broke out from. And we could get a back test before it does continue to go higher. Resistance is going to be around 190 to 189. If we break that, I'm going to be watching us get closer to about 192.5, then around 195 flat. So those are all very, very likely for Tesla to meet, but don't forget the news will affect the stock too. Tuesdays are green about 51% of the time, and Tesla tends to do very well, especially like during this month. During the fourth hour, going into the fifth hour, tend to be the strongest hours for Tesla. Tesla had its breakout during that time too today. On top of that, the short interest on Tesla just exploded. As of Friday, we saw 42.6 million Tesla shares being shorted. I was worried that this would lead to more manipulation, and the market is being manipulated to a large extent. I believe that what's going on in the markets is I still believe that there's going to be a rug pull coming, but not yet. It's going to take a while, maybe until like June, maybe even a little bit later than that. But what I'm seeing happening is they're going to let the market pump. They're going to keep pumping these markets, these market makers, so that we all turn bullish. And the moment everyone turns bullish, they're going to yank us right back down. Okay? But until then, we have some time until the yank to the downside comes. We have a bullish catalyst, and that's going to be the debt ceiling. If it's raised before June, it's going to help the market pump more. If not, then we could start to see bearish price action in June if they continue to delay it because of their dirty politics. Now, for Tesla, 131 million was the volume. Pretty nice volume, well above average. Very, very good stuff so far. Good buying pressure. Short volume is still going up. They're continuing to short Tesla. They're trying to fight the price, and it's not working as shorts are getting annihilated. So now let's break down the technicals for Tesla. Now, once again, guys, I am sorry because I can't always predict exactly what's happening with the debt ceiling. And I made a mistake, which was I became too fixated on what the politicians were saying, and I became very concerned because of it. Firstly, we got no deal, even though Biden and all of these people were saying the deal is going to come on Sunday. We didn't get the deal, so that was not good news. Additionally, we heard McCarthy say that Biden may cause a default. Straight up, he's blaming Biden for it. And other politicians are saying there's no progress being made whatsoever. And Janet Yellen is saying that if they don't finish by June, we're just, a couple days away. We're less than 2 weeks away. There's going to be a very, very big mess, a severe recession. The recession is going to be exacerbated and things are going to get much worse. So all of this like negative news that came out over the weekend, especially with politicians fighting, made me very concerned and very, very cautious. But as a result, the market does not care so far. The market does not care about the news, and the market is continuing to hold up and remain very resilient. So for that reason, I'm going to remain open-minded and talk about both the bullish and bearish cases and then break down what I think is more likely given the current technicals. Okay? Now, I know that annoys some people, but I have to do what's best for everyone, and we have to be prepared because the news right now is being dictated by these politicians. And once again, politics is just very annoying and it's still dictating the markets. Now, as far as Tesla goes, if we're bullish on Tesla again, okay, I would actually anticipate a bit of a back test first before it continues pushing, but it could still break above 190. Very, very likely, very, very possible because the daily candle is still quite strong. If Tesla breaks this 189 to 190 resistance, that's going to be the next resistance to watch for. If it breaks it, it's going to fly to 192. Break that, then 195, around the 195s is going to come, and Tesla may as well make its way all the way up to the 200 EMA at 198 if we break 195. Those are the bullish cases. Watch those levels very carefully, especially for tomorrow if Tesla breaks out. Now, if let's just say something very bad happens in the world. Let's just say the politicians smack each other and we have no deal, and Biden says something. Who knows what? Okay, I don't know what the politicians will say, but let's just say something bad happens. If the whole market does start to slide a bit, hypothetically, Tesla has support around the 185 area. If that fails to hold, I'm going to be watching that 183 zone followed by 180 flat. The major support is going to be at 180. It's very, very strong support right there. And if that fails, then 175.5, which is where the 50 EMA happens to be, is what you have to watch for. Those are the support zones which are going to be very, very important. Now, I don't think Tesla's going to crash that low unless we have a very bad piece of news. That's very unlikely right now. The odds are favoring, looking at this daily candle, that Tesla's going to keep trying to hold up and may even try to keep pushing to the upside. The daily MACD is wide open. The RSI looks relatively strong. On the 1 hour time frame, it's also looking quite nice on Tesla. Momentum slowed down a little bit at the end of the day into the after hours. That's because there's less volume during this time frame. So Tesla might actually cool off just a little bit. And I'm going to break down what I think is very likely. I think the odds favor Tesla cooling off just a tiny bit and retesting this like 186 area because that's where we got the breakout. And on the smaller time frame, you could see we had a bullish triangle developing. So right about here, there was this bullish triangle, and then we had our breakout from this like 186 area. So this is like where our breakout zone was. 186 may get retested. It might just like kiss it or just touch it temporarily. Then it might try to bounce off that and just continue to retest 190. For now, I see Tesla holding these levels and maintaining them. And if there is any deal that's closed, it's going to fly even higher and get closer to the 200 area. It's looking very strong temporarily. But I must warn you, after the deal is closed, if it's closed very early, we could see the market slow down afterwards, right? A couple of days after, the market might start to slow down, and that could slow Tesla down too. And if the deal is not closed, like I'm warning you guys, if the deal is not closed until after June 1st, if they delay it way too much, that could be bad for the market. So be prepared for that. But for now, the odds are favoring Tesla holding around these levels, around the mid to high 180s, and continuing to push. Okay, as far as SPY goes, Let me just add that SPY turns very bullish if we get a very good piece of news. You have to watch the 420 resistance. That's where our very strong resistance is. If we break 420, this thing is going to fly to 426 plus. Break 426, we're going to see 430. Okay? If we fail to do so that's the bullish case. The bearish case is going to be we come all the way down to 418.5. If that fails, we're going to retest 417 flat, which is where the 5 EMA happens to be. If that fails, the 5 EMA fails, if 417 fails, we're going to make our way down to the 415 flat area. We have some nice support over there. And then after that, we have 412.3, which is where our basis band happens to be on the Bollingers. So 412, 415, and then 417, and then 418.5 are the major supports to watch for. The most important one is going to be 415, though, out of all of those. We could get a back test before it tries to bounce. That's very, very possible. For resistance, once again, 420, then 425 to 426 come next. But 420 is very strong, so watch that very carefully. Very tough resistance right over there. Now, what am I leaning towards? What do I think is more likely? I think SPY has an indecision candle. We pushed up in the morning, then we came down and then pushed up and ended up closing very flat. So it's starting to slow down a little bit. We might see SPY slow down just a tiny bit, maybe retest the 417s, then try to bounce off that, make its way up to 419, and close very, very flat, maybe even a little bit red. That would be completely fine, but very, very flat and boring price action and consolidation is what I believe SPY is starting to do. And it's just waiting for the debt ceiling deal. If Biden and McCarthy get the deal at the last minute, there could be one more big push up. If they don't get it, like I said before, we have to be open-minded. Now, please remember the politicians will continue to jab at one another, but so far it's not affecting the markets too badly. If the QQQ is bullish again, if we get a big push, it is overbought right now, but if it pushes up more, 340 is going to come. If it ends up failing at 340 and we just start downtrending a bit, we could retest 334 and then, 335 to 334 and then 332.5. Okay, I'm leaning more towards this just continuing to chop around this area. It's getting hit with stronger resistance, so it's not breaking out as hard as it was the last week. But I think the QQQ is going to try to maintain around these levels between 334 to 338. Might cool off just a tiny bit, then just try to bounce. And for now, I see it holding up for the time being. Now, to add even more, I know you guys don't want me talking too much about NEO. Let me just briefly say the lending news about China was very good for NEO stock, and NEO was up pretty big because of it. It's up over 9%. It's going to likely try to get above $9 tomorrow, but it has to break above 8.8 to get there. For, let me see, the NASDAQ, NASDAQ is likely going to get a back test of this 12,600 area first before it tries to continue pushing. But like the QQQ, I see it holding up quite nicely. SPX, same thing. It might get a back test of about 41.76 before it comes down to about 41.50. It could end up actually holding around the 41.76 area if we hold the 5 EMA. For now, it's holding up quite nicely. And if anything, I don't see it crashing unless we get a very bad piece of news. So far, it's not coming out. I think the odds favor it trying to hold around this zone between 41.50 to about 4,200. Just remain around there for the time being. Now, if we get the debt ceiling close, SPX is going to fly very hard. It's about 4,250, if not closer to about 4,300. That's very possible, but we have to be very patient nonetheless. The VIX is up quite a bit, but it's very indecisive, just trading sideways for now. I don't see too much going on with it. It's just waiting for the big news. If we get a spike in volatility because of Joe Biden and McCarthy closing the deal, then once again, the VIX could continue to get one more big drop before it continues to move. But for now, it is actually gapping up a little bit. So this could affect how it moves for tomorrow and cause the market to try to bounce after it comes down. That's what I'm leaning for, but I'm seeing more choppy price action anyways. Same with the SQQQ. The dollar is still holding up nicely. If the dollar gets a breakout later, I think that the debt ceiling could cause that after June if it's delayed. If the dollar breaks out after June, that's going to become bearish for the markets if the deal is not closed. But if they end up closing the deal, we could see the dollar drop a bit, and that could help the market temporarily. It all depends on what they're doing with the debt ceiling. That's the biggest factor right now. I can't predict it perfectly, but I do believe historically they do tend to close the deal right before the deadline. So the odds do favor the market holding up. Coinbase, looking pretty good after the bullish news, which was kind of unexpected. Bullish candle might cool off to retest 60 flat, which is where the 50 EMA is, before it tries to continue pushing. And right now it's looking very strong on the daily charts. Very nice rebound. If it breaks above 61.25, it's going to make its way up to 64. If it fails to do so, and if it ends up breaking the low, so the low is 56, you have to watch that 56 area. Then we have 54 as support, and this gap fell down to the 40s. So far, it's holding up nicely. It actually gained a lot of relative strength. And for now, with the wide open MACD, it could make its way up to about 62 again. It's going to likely come down first and then try to make its way up. But I see it just chopping around for the time being. Alibaba was bullish because of the news that came out involving China. I am seeing it slowing down, losing momentum on the MACD, so it might retest 85 first before it bounces. And also for Aapl, I see it just chopping between 172 to 174, just going back and forth and back and forth. But it did gap down just a little bit on this daily candle, so it might make its way up to almost 175 very soon. But I do see it chopping for the most part before it makes one move up to 175. But for now, it's still holding up nicely. That's a pretty good sign for Aapl. Now, here's the thing about Aapl. If we get the debt ceiling deal closed, Aapl could fly pretty hard, so 177.5 to 180. It could make a big move to the upside if they close the deal very soon. If they fail to do so, Apple's going to come down with the market. Apple's going to drag the market down after June if they don't close the deal before June. Okay, don't forget about that. Nvidia is looking pretty okay. It cooled off just a tiny bit, but it's holding above the 5 EMA for now, around this 307 support. For now, if Nvidia remains choppy, which I think it probably will, it is a little bit overextended. I think it's going to just chop around a bit. It might make its way up to retest resistance at 314. Then we have support around this 306 to about 309 zone. I think it's just going to chop back and forth and back and forth. It might close very, very flat, but it could start to push up as we approach earnings a little bit. So be open-minded on Nvidia. If it breaks above 314, it's going to fly to 320. If it fails to break to the upside, it comes down. If it fails at 309, it's going to make its way down to 306. Then it could get closer to 303 to 300. For now, it's very, very flat, and we're just waiting for earnings. So I am anticipating a potential push-up approaching it. I think the odds favor that. But until then, just be very patient and expect some choppy price action. I expect it to chop around, maybe push up again and stay within the range. And I do think it might hold up quite nicely approaching earnings nonetheless. Google has a small bearish divergence developing. It needs to cool off just a little bit. I could retest about 123, 123.7 to 124 before it tries to continue going. If we get the good news, we could see Google go all the way up to 128.5 to 130. If we get bad news, right, it's going to make its way all the way down to 122, then 120, all the way down there. What am I leaning towards? I think it might cool off a little bit, then to get a really nice bounce off 124 to 123.7. And then we might see Google just continue to chop around a bit and maintain these high levels until we get some more news about the debt ceiling. But always be open-minded in case something bad happens. For now, I'm not really seeing that, which is why I'm not leaning more in that direction. The market has some nice strength to it. Last but not least, looking at Amazon, it's holding up pretty decently so far. Let me just check something before I continue moving forward. Just quickly about Amazon, it's looking a little bit weak. It might retest 114.25, if not a little bit lower, before it tries to bounce. But for now, I'm going to be looking for a bounce on Amazon going forward, because since it is very close to oversold territory and has dropped quite a bit. I'm going to be watching these these imbalances around the 112s and then 114.25 area. We might see Amazon retest those areas before it gets a bounce. So either 114.25, if not 112, then it bounces off those. One of those two should be it. And if it does bounce, watch the 115.76 resistance followed by about 116. Finally, for Meta, I'm anticipating it's going to cool off on the RSI just a tiny bit to retest 145. As long as it holds 145, since it's losing some momentum on the MACD, it could have the potential to make its way all the way back up to the 250s. Did I say 145 and 245? Sorry about that, guys. For now, I am still leaning more towards Meta holding up nicely. I mean, it wasn't really impacted by the negative news. For now, it's looking quite nice, so just be very, very open-minded. If it breaks below 145, it's going to make its way down to about 142. If it breaks to the upside, it could break 150, make its way up to 153.5. I'm leaning more towards it cooling off a bit and then getting a nice bounce, just continuing to hold these levels. And that's what I'm seeing for the markets, okay? So for Tesla, guys, be very patient with this. I I went over the bullish and bearish cases, and I just want the best for everyone. And please be open-minded for a potential back test before another potential hold. And I think Tesla will maintain these levels. I have some merch for you guys. Don't forget to buy the dips if you want to buy one of these shirts and things like that. Not financial advice, by the way. I have some really nice merch if you're interested in supporting the channel. It's around the comment section. And don't forget about the Webull link. The offer ends very soon. Thank you. Tesla in the market to the moon as the long term is still incredibly bright. And peace out.